Hi, my name's Erica and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I love any and everything yarn related, so that's what we talk about here on my channel mostly. And for today's video, I wanted to give you 6 steps to how to start selling your crochet goods at markets. For beginners, by a beginner. And I know what you're thinking.
Erica, why would we trust you if you're a self-proclaimed beginner to give us any advice?
And here's why I think this video could be valuable. I've only did 4 markets last year, but it was my first year ever doing markets. And because I'm still so fresh to it all, I'm only going to give you the 6 steps that I think are absolutely necessary. We're not going to be talking about how to create the most elaborate booth or how to create business cards or anything like that. It's going to be quick, without the bells and whistles, what you need to get started. Before I jump into the 6 steps, I wanted to talk about why I love selling at markets and why I think if you're thinking about it, you should give it a shot. First of all, it's so much fun to see people's reactions to your creations in real time and to get their honest reaction. I love seeing the kids run up or somebody that gets super excited about a dragon. It's happened a few times and it's just really rewarding. And then second of all, I do think it's a pretty lucrative side hustle or full-time gig. I do it on top of my full-time job, but I have had days or markets where I've made over $600, which for me, for a side hustle, that's a pretty lucrative opportunity. Jumping right in, step 1, the least fun part of all, the administrative or legal perspective. Disclaimer, not a lawyer, not legal advice. This is just what I did. I'm no expert clearly, but this is how I got started and it's been working. So first of all, you have to look into what it takes to actually sell in your state. Most states require a seller's permit. And how I went about getting mine in California, I just searched Seller's Permit California and I found the .gov website so that I could apply through there. It was free. It was almost instantaneous that I got my seller's permit. Definitely keep that permit number handy when you do start looking for markets, as they will be asking you for that permit number. And then here's another optional step, depending on what name you're going to go by for your small business. So if you're going to be calling yourself like Erica's Crochet Creations or something like that where it's under your name, you don't need to do this step. But for me, I knew I wanted to have a more creative name. So I came up with the name Dose of Kawaii. Quick story time, I'm half Japanese. I spent a lot of summers in Japan growing up and I always loved the cute culture. And in Japanese, kawaii means cute. So my goal with my business is to just bring a dose of cuteness or joy to my customers whenever they either see my plushies or purchase my plushies. So that's the backstory, but I knew I wanted to go by something other than my name. So I needed to file for a DBA, also known as an FBN. A DBA is doing business as, and an FBN stands for fictitious business name. So in order to get these, I went to my county and again, I filed for it. I did have to pay a small fee, and then they had to publish my business name in a newspaper 2 weeks in a row or something. Very antiquated process, but it was really simple. So if you do want to have a more creative name that's not actually your first name or last name, and is more fictitious, then you'll want to follow this step and look up the proper channels to do that in your state and county. With the boring administrative stuff out of the way, we can move on to step 2, which is way more fun, and that's finding the market that you want to vend at. Now, where to start with this step? I would say Google is going to be the best option. You'll want to look for craft fairs, farmers markets, festivals, and also flea markets. I've had some luck at flea markets as well. Something to keep in mind as you're researching is, who is the target audience going to be at this market? So for instance, if you vend at a flea market, you might know that people are not going to be as maybe appreciative of handmade items as someone at a craft fair who understands the time and effort that it takes. Not to say people at the flea market won't appreciate it, just speaking about a general demographic, keep that in mind when you're looking at what kind of inventory do I have, what price range am I going to be pricing my plushies at. When you find an event that looks kind of interesting to you, look up what kind of promotions the event organizers are doing for that event. The event could look really cool. They could have amazing marketing materials, but if there's no foot traffic, you're not going to have a good time. You might barely make back your booth fee. Another thing to keep in mind is to not pay too much for your first market. The most I've paid was $100, and that was the most expensive market I did, and it was the worst one I did. I had the best luck at the $30 and $50 markets that I've done. Just do your research. I have a horror story of a market that I applied for and got accepted for and paid the booth fee for, but that will be a story for another time. Just all that to say, research, be a little bit choosy with the markets that you decide to go to. It's not better to just go to any market just to do it. You want to make sure that you are choosing the right one. I know it can be really exciting to just get started, and I don't blame you, but make sure you are looking at things thoroughly before you choose where to have your first market. Step 3 is going to be getting supplies for your market ready. After you've applied, you've been accepted, you know when your market's going to be, which I hope you gave yourself ample time to gather your supplies, at least a month, I would say. This is going to be the list of things that I think you need as necessities, and then I'll share what the nice to haves are. Again, we're not trying to set up the most eye-catching booth. This is going to be your starter booth, just the bare basics. So first things first, you're going to need a table. I like the 6-foot tables from Home Depot. They look just like the picnic tables that you see. I like to have 2, but you can definitely get away with 1 as you're first starting out. I wouldn't have 2 if you're not going to have the inventory to fill it, but 1 is perfectly acceptable to start. This next one is technically optional, but to me, it's kind of not. It just levels up your booth so much, and it makes it look so much more professional for less than $20, and that would be table covers. On Amazon, they have these for a pretty reasonable price, and it just covers up those legs and makes it look like you kind of know what you're doing, you know? So I would highly recommend these in my necessity section, even though of course you could get away without it. Next would be a chair so that you can be comfortable. You'll be there for a while, so I would imagine you might like to sit at some point. The next thing to think about is how are you going to get paid? So for me, I like to have a square reader. This is the one that I have. It's just a Bluetooth square reader, and it goes from my phone, so people can just tap to pay, and I'm able to collect credit card payments, but I also carry a fanny pack with me at all times. I bring like maybe $60 to $80 worth of cash in various bills, like 1s, 5s, 10s. And that has served me well as well. A lot of people do pay cash, but it's good to have the option. If this is not accessible for you, then get a Venmo account. Another necessity I would say is bags for your customer. Not everybody wants one, but I think it's a nice offer for them to be able to carry around their plushies, especially if they purchased more than one and they're small. You want to be able to give them a bag to walk around with so they're not juggling little chicks everywhere they walk. If you're doing a night market, lighting, but I might try to go for a day market for your first one. And then lastly would be price tags or some way to indicate what the pricing is for your products. You can have signage. I like these ones because people tend to not want to talk to you and ask you how much something costs. They'd rather just see it for themselves. So I've started price tagging everything with the addition of signage sometimes. Let's move on to the nice to haves. A canopy is really nice to have, especially if you're going to be out in the sun. Getting something that covers a 10 by 10 space is usually a pretty safe bet. And I think you can get one of these for less than $100 on Amazon. I will link mine. Mine was pink. I have heard it's smart to purchase a white canopy because, and I've seen this myself, some of the events require you to have a white top on your canopy. I had to get pink because I like pink everything, but you know, it's probably wise to go for white. Next would be business cards. Again, another nice to have for people to be able to find you after the event, find your socials, your shop online. My fiance created one for me, and it's been really nice to have to hand out to people. And again, it kind of makes you look like you just know what you're doing a little bit more. The next one was actually a game changer for me. It is a wagon. This makes getting things to and from your car for breakdown and setup so much easier. For me, going from storage down to the car became like a 2-trip process versus probably what would have been like 4 to 5 and a lot more sweat. So I highly recommend getting a wagon if your finances allow for it, and maybe do that on like your second or third market after you know, hey, this is something I like doing and I want to continue to do this. Although wagons are kind of just good to have anyway. And then the last thing, display stands. I like to get the ones from Michael's. They're just wooden crates. You can always get a great deal with a coupon. And so that's everything that I think that you would want to have to get started. Let's have a look at what my first booth ever looked like with some of the bare essentials that I highlighted, as well as some nice to have add-ons. So this was my first booth that I ever did at the K-pop festival, and you can see I had a few different wooden crates. I did have 2 tables as well as my table covers. That sign that I'm holding I actually got from Amazon. It's just a letter board and it lights up, but I like the idea of having my name on there somewhere. It was kind of cool because this festival did go to dark. So as it started to get dusk, there was lighting overhead, thank goodness, as you can see in the photo. But as it started to get darker, I turned the light on. It just brought people in. The one thing that I did forget to mention in the nice to haves, if you are going to get a canopy, this is a requirement. You'll see the little weights down at the bottom of that picture. That's going to be required if you have a canopy. That keeps the whole thing from flying and hitting another vendor or taking someone out or hurting someone. So you're going to have to get those weights if you do decide to get a canopy. What I want to highlight with this picture though is that it's pretty simple, right? Like, I was just getting started. I didn't have too many crates. Everything was like pretty straight across visually, but it got the job done, and it was one of my most successful markets to date, even though it was my first one. So all this to say, you really don't need a lot to get started. The most important thing is to just start, but also get some stuff that you know is going to last and that you're going to use for markets to come if you do decide that this is something you want to continue to do. Step 4 is prepare. So finally, we're at the point where we get to do our hobby and the reason we're doing all of this, which is crocheting, of course. So at this point, you're going to start deciding what products you feel like you should be bringing to your market, considering the target audience, what you think the budget is going to be of your target audience, and the demographics that will be at this event. For inventory, I would say there's no magic number for how many of each item you should bring. What I do and my strategy is I bring all of the big items that I've crocheted that I crocheted just because I wanted to. So if I wanted to make a dragon, I will of course bring that. And then I will supplement with the smaller, cheaper, low-sew, no-sew items. So let's have a look at a TikTok video that I actually made recently about which items sold best for me at my last market. All right, so this was my booth setup here, and I also have the creators. The Mushy Boys pattern sold out really well for me. Penguins, chicks, and mini bobas. And then the chickens always sell out really well, and Winnie the Dragon. So these were my best sellers at the last market. You could see that a lot of them did sell out. And when you're looking at like 6 to 7 plushies at $10 a pop, that's already $70, which is pretty good, and usually that will help you make back that booth fee. So that's kind of my strategy when it comes to what is inventory. Like I said in the last step, let's give ourselves plenty of time to prepare. We don't need carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel is not welcome here in this space. So give yourself lots of time to crochet up as much inventory as you feel like you'll need. And the other thing is, if market day comes and you don't feel like you have enough, welcome to the party. You probably will never feel like you have enough, and that's okay. Try not to beat yourself up. Just bring what you have, and people are going to love it because it's handmade, and they'll know that you put your love and energy and time into it. Another question that I would imagine some of you probably have is, do you track your inventory? The answer is no, I do not track my inventory. I am not that organized. Like I said, this is a basics getting started from a beginner to a beginner course, if you will. So what I do and my hack for tracking things, at least like what the revenue was for that day, is of course I look at the Square app to see how many credit card transactions I had, but also I count up how much cash I'm bringing to the market to start, and then whatever cash I end up with, I just subtract the starting number to get my total there. And being at the market, working at it the whole day, you really do kind of remember what sold out. There are people out there that are more organized. You could be one of them. It's just not me right now. So I don't track. and you don't have to. Step 5 is to price your crochet creations. I wish I had something more scientific to tell you, but I'm just gonna be honest, and I think sometimes it's good to know how people are honestly pricing. There are people out there who use pricing calculators. That is amazing. What I do is I literally take my creation, I look at it, and I'm like, if I was a customer who didn't understand how much time and energy went into crochet, right? Like, they're not the ones doing every stitch. If I was just a random person at a farmer's market and I looked at this and I loved it and I wanted it, I understand it's handmade, I'd probably be willing to pay like $45. This guy feels like $45. It's not scientific at all. It's literally, I hold it in my hand, I see what I think someone might want to pay for it if they weren't a crocheter, and that's how I price my things. I also do tend to look at, like, how are other people pricing their stuff, just so that I'm being sure that I'm within the realm of fair. So we're really trying to strike a balance between being fair, and of course it's your business, you're allowed to price it however you want and however you see fit. But for me, my philosophy is to try to be fair to both the customer and myself. I know how much time and energy goes into creating my plushies. At the same time, I also know that not everybody else does understand that. So I try to strike a balance between what would somebody actually pay for this and what am I willing to give it up for. So that's my pricing strategy. It's not scientific, but I hope it helps to have a peek behind the curtain. Step 6, it is market day, the moment you've been waiting for, the moment you've been training your whole life for. It's the day you get to go sell your crochet creations out in the wild. I would recommend having your cart prepared either the night before with everything packed up or the morning of, but give yourself plenty of time to get to the venue and to find where your spot is. It can be pretty overwhelming when you're getting to a new venue or a new market the first time and you don't know where to go. Even for me, having done a few, I still like to get there with plenty of time. I would say an hour. If you can bring somebody with you to the booth, then do it. If you have a friend, a family member, a partner, someone who's willing to go with you at least for setup or breakdown, but even better if they can be with you the whole day, especially for that first day. It does help with when you need to be relieved to go to the restroom or grab a snack, and it also just helps do away with a little bit of those first day jitters or anxieties around doing something new. But if you can't bring somebody with you or you're unable, don't let that deter you. In my experiences at markets, my vendor neighbors have been so kind, and I never would have had an issue asking one of them to watch my booth for me while I ran to the bathroom real quick or got a bite to eat. Just bring your cash with you, because you don't know who else could come up to your booth, or you don't know the vendor next to you that well. They might watch your things, but you just need to be careful. Just be vigilant, right? Of course, wear sunscreen if you're not using a canopy. Most importantly is smile, have fun. Remember that you're presenting your own handcrafted things to the world, and that is so awesome and amazing. Just be so proud of yourself that you did this and that you took this chance on yourself and you invested in yourself, because that's really awesome, and not a lot of people do that. Not me crying about a market. At the end of step 6, when market day is all said and done, what I want you to do is this. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself the biggest kudos ever for putting yourself out there. It can be so hard and it can be overwhelming. You might be afraid of what people might think or have imposter syndrome if your items are good enough, but don't let that hold you back. Just go for it, and I promise you, after you're done with your first market, you will be looking for your next one right away. So at the end of step 6, really the last step is look for your next market and start the whole process all again. So that wraps up the 6 steps to selling your amigurumi at a market. For beginners, by a beginner. I really hope that this video was helpful, but I also hope that it was inspiring and it showed you that you don't have to have a whole ton of the fanciest equipment or the most amazing business cards or a banner or any of this stuff in order to just get started. If you are someone who has done markets in the past and you can think of anything that I missed, please add it to the comment section below. I would love to see that. By the way, Don't ask me about taxes yet, because I haven't done them. So I don't know about that part yet. I will update you guys on that, because that's going to be a fun new adventure for me. But if this video was helpful, please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks, bye!